Welcome to War Priest, where you get practical orthodox Christian experiences, specifically for warriors.
War Priest commence.
Hey heroes, welcome to War Priest, second episode. Here with my good buddy Alex Brasco. Say hi, Alex.
Hey, Father, how you doing?
Can we do away with these silly hats now?
We can, but and to commemorate the topics we're going to discuss today, I just want to point out my sons let me borrow this, so thank you, boys.
That's the Spartan helmet, man.
You should see them when they fight with these things on. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Leonidas. I'm putting this bray back on the shelf where it belongs.
Right.
Y'all can see my bald head.
I'm also wearing my Kansas City Chiefs shirt. Father
Okay.
representing Kansas City.
I'm kind of getting tired of
Mahomes.
yeah, and I'm getting tired of Taylor Swift.
Oh, yes. Well, we are all tired of Taylor Swift. We were tired day one.
Yeah, can imagine. Yeah, it's Taylor Swift's team, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what are we talking about today, Alex?
Father, we got a lot of good stuff we're talking about today. We're all about practical information. There's going to be practical information today, but there's also going to be some good stuff that you happen to be a subject matter expert on. We will try to answer some of the hard questions as we go along. Again, this is focused on providing practical information to warfighters from all the different services, because in the end, that's what we're all doing, supporting warfighting, right?
Well,
They're
absolutely not just war fighters. Let's throw in first responders. Let's throw in veterans. Let's throw in anybody interested in Orthodox Christianity and service in these fields.
They're all welcome. All welcome here. SecDef was talking about changing the Department of Defense to Department of War. What do you think of that, Father?
I like it. That's what they do.
That's true.
So,
if you know the history of why we're called the Department of Defense, you're like, hey, we're back to where we started.
That happened, what was it, 48, 50, something like that?
I believe so, in the 40s, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't remember. There was some politics behind that. But yeah, let's get the politics out of it and let's focus on the war fighting. That's what I've always wanted to do, which brings us up to our soup du jour topic of conversation today, ethics in the military profession.
Dum.
Yeah,
sounds heavy.
I actually got a degree in this stuff. The U.S. Army sent me, when I finished up at 3rd Special Forces Group, they sent me to University of Virginia to study ethics. So I got a master's degree in ethics. And as a utilization assignment, because I had practiced law in my previous life, they sent me to the Judge Advocate General's Legal Center in school. And I taught ethics as a member of their faculty for 3 years following the master's degree. Created an ethical curriculum, was actually consulted with 9 other Army ethicists at the time. This would have been 2015 through 18.
Father, it sounds like officer stuff. Why if NCOs are listening, why do they need to care?
Because it goes all the way down. Remember when these officers sneeze, the NCOs catch a cold. So it goes all the way down. And to give the background story on ethics in the profession of arms, it was in 2012, 2013. General George Casey was the chief of staff of the Army. And we've used officers and enlisted. We've used the term over and over again. Oh, it's not professional. Be professional. This guy, that's the most professional guy I've ever seen. Constantly talking about being professional, right? So an Army major asked the question to General George Casey, hey, sir, how can I be a professional if there is no profession? So, is the Army a profession? Is the military a profession? What about first responders, police officers, things of that nature? Are they a profession? And if so, and we know that every profession has an ethic, what is the ethic and how do we follow that ethic? And how does that ethic apply, or how does it overlap, or how does orthodox Christian ethics transcend the military ethic, the first responder ethic, the ethic of the overall profession, and is it a profession? So that was the question General George Casey had in 2012. In 2013, the Center for the Army Profession and Ethic was established at West Point, commonly known as TAPE.
Yep.
And they very quickly published ADRP 1, that's Army Doctrine and Reference Publication 1, which was entitled The Army Profession. Chapter 2 was the Army Ethic. They quickly went to a 2015 revision, and I was consulted on the writing of that 2015 edition, Chapter 2, the Army Ethic. Now, I was consulted, but they didn't listen to anything I had to say.
Yeah, that's
And
too bad.
We will talk more about that here as we dive into this. But first of all,
fun fact, the Center for Army Leadership right now, just a short while ago, a couple years ago, I guess, was the Center for the Army Profession and Leadership. And before that, it was the Center for Army Leadership. So it's gone through a name change a couple times. I hear
we changed names in the Department of Defense to make it look like we're doing really cool stuff when really nothing really changes. We just call it, like, my favorite is these centers of excellence.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, are we really doing anything excellent? Well, no, we're not. We're not doing anything different than what we did before. But you know what? We're going to call it excellence. And that way everyone will think it is. So, hey, this is the podcast of excellence, huh? We'll call it that, right? Or maybe we should change it from War Priest to the podcast of excellence. I'm not sure. So, but what
you're going to talk about, Father, applies to all the services. So I don't want all the other guys to turn off.
It applies to first responders. It applies to being an Orthodox Christian. So what we're talking about, ethics. What is ethics? A lot of people don't understand the difference between the notion of ethics and the notion of morality. So morality is moral philosophy. It's your understanding of what is right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Ethics is putting that's the praxis of the moral philosophy. It's what you do. So ethics is an action word. Moral philosophy is a thinking or a belief word, right?
And from an Orthodox perspective, do we ever talk about ethics and orthodoxy or not?
Absolutely. You talk about it every time you go to confession.
Okay.
So it's what you do. It's what you do and what you fail to do.
Yeah.
So,
but formally, the term ethics may not be used in the church. Is that correct?
No, it doesn't. But it comes from the term ethika, which is Greek. But we can. I mean, we ought to just dive right in because there's a lot of material. This might be a longer podcast. Hopefully, it's interesting.
Let's go.
But first of all, whether you're a military service person or whether you are a first responder or whether you're a school teacher or no matter what you're doing, what is a profession to start off with? So I'm actually referring to a set of slides here that I created. So when we look at professions, we have to look at the duties of that profession. So I rely heavily on a book by James Toner, which I'd highly recommend, entitled True Faith and Allegiance, The Burden of Military Ethics. So he says the preeminent military task, back to warfighting, right? The preeminent military task and what separates the military profession from all other occupations is that soldiers are routinely prepared to kill. In addition to killing and preparing to kill, the soldier has two other principal duties. Some soldiers die, and when they're not dying, they must be preparing to die.
That
talk
sounds
about
orthodox to me. That sounds
uh,
orthodox to me, Father.
that sounds
Dying and
orthodox.
die.
Absolutely, because we're going to talk about death in another episode coming up. But I always like to talk about the bluff, right? What's the bottom line up front? Bottom line up front. If you're not risking your career, you're not doing your job. Robert Quinn wrote that in his book, Deep Change. John Silver, president of Boston University, in a book called Straight Shooting, writes, a soldier should be prepared to not only die for his country, but to be fired for it. We don't talk about that very much, do we?
I don't know many senior leaders, Army senior leaders at least, that have been fired for what they believe in.
Right, exactly. But if you're a professional, that's what you do. So whatever job you're doing right now, wherever you find yourself, let's talk about what is a profession and what is a non-profession. So what professions do, right? Number one, they provide a vital service to the society, which the society cannot provide for itself, but must have to flourish or to even survive. So you've got a vital service. Two, they work with expert knowledge, and this expert knowledge is abstract. It's abstract theory, but it's developed into human expertise. It's not routine or repetitive work. It takes years of study and experiential learning, which is why professionals say they practice their profession. They don't do a job, they practice a profession because they're never good at it or never good enough at it. Third, professions earn and maintain the trust of their society by the effective and ethical application of their expertise. So effective means I know how to do what it is I'm doing. Ethical means I'm not going to lie, cheat, or steal while I'm doing it. So when we talk about this, there are certain characteristics, and we can put them in two columns. One is the profession column. The other is the bureaucracy column, the non-profession column, the lay column, whatever you want to call it. So let's just go through a list of these things and contrast and compare, and then we'll talk about various professions or various jobs and decide whether they're professions or not. And in the back of your mind, ask yourself whether the military is a profession. And I think what you'll see is it's a combination. But number one, expert knowledge versus non-expert knowledge. Profession has expert knowledge. The bureaucracy has non-expert knowledge. Well, what's the difference? Expert knowledge is something that you have to go to school to do, and you have to have years of experience in doing it. And when we think about that, let's think of a doctor conducting an appendectomy versus non-expert knowledge. Non-expert knowledge is something you can watch a YouTube video and learn how to do. For instance, I can watch a YouTube video that shows me how to change the alternator on a 2016 Ram 1500 truck, right? But there are no appendectomy tutorials on YouTube. Can I pull up a YouTube channel on doing an appendectomy, Alex?
Today's day and age, probably even on an alien. But I wouldn't trust it.
Possibly, but nobody's really going to want to do it because you're missing that professional thing of trust.
Right.
So professions, they accept lifelong learning. They're constantly going to continuing education. They do it on their own. They are self-motivated for their lifelong learning. Bureaucracies, you develop me, maybe with some on-the-job training. Professions always see new situations. Every human body is different. So if you've done one appendectomy, the next one you're going to do is going to be different because it's on a different kind of person with a different body. However, if you've changed one alternator on a 2015 Ram 1500, you've changed all the alternators on a 2015 Ram 1500. So those are routine situations. Professionals practice their profession. Bureaucrats do work. Professionals have unlimited personal liability, little personal liability on the behalf of the non-professional. So the doctor messes up your appendectomy. Well, he's going to get sued personally for malpractice.
Mhm.
Whereas if you spill hot coffee on someone working at McDonald's, McDonald's is getting sued, not you. You see the difference in liability there?
Yep.
Professionals invest in humans. Bureaucrats invest in SOPs and software and hardware. The measure of success for a professional is effectiveness. The measure of success for a bureaucrat is efficiency. How many tires did you change? How many widgets did you make? How many widgets did you sell? Whereas, how effective is my appendectomy? Is this person healed? Professionals have a trust relationship with a client. The amount of trust that we have in professionals, Alex, is quite frankly bewildering in some cases. So think about it. Think about the last time you went to the doctor.
So I'm going to ask a real stupid question, Father, because our audience might be thinking the same question is, well, this is all nice and fine. You're talking about education. You're talking about, doing something difficult, whatever it is. But I just enlisted in whatever, the Coast Guard. I enlisted in the Army. I enlisted in the Navy. Am I a professional?
Well, this hopefully will answer that question. So apply what you do to those things that we just talked about.
Mm-hmm. I guess the question is is there a certain part where, you become an NCO, maybe then it's a little more professional because you're committed, you're going to the schooling, you're getting the education, the formal education aspect of things, you've committed to something. Is there a difference between a guy coming in enlisting for a couple years versus a guy who decides to make the military a career? I guess that's my question.
Not really, not while you're serving. Mm-hmm. What's the measure of success for an infantry platoon? Is it efficiency or is it effectiveness?
Yeah.
Okay. We assaulted an assaulted an objective. We did it 30 times this month, sir. Well, was any of it successful? You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So effectiveness, trust relationship. Do we have trust relationships? Do we count on trust? Must you trust your superiors, and must they trust you? And at what level is that trust important?
That's critical.
It's absolutely critical. Trust is the main bedrock and foundation of what the Army calls mission command, and that's a joint term now, mission command.
Yep.
So trust. Effective leaders establish trust. They create shared understanding to build cohesive teams. That's the effective measure of mission command. So the thing boils down to trust. Professionals have a high degree of autonomy. Non-professionals are closely supervised. In GWAT, Global War on Terror, what was the center of mass in GWAT out there fighting? Was it the battalion, the company, the platoon, or the squad?
I would say it's the lowest level, right?
Bingo. It was the squad. It was a squad war. So it was individual squads headed up by an E6, sometimes an E5. They were out running and gunning, and they were out doing counterinsurgency operations. They were the frontline representation of the United States of America. Yeah. And it was a 25-year-old squad leader doing it.
Yeah.
That is a high degree of autonomy.
Absolutely.
High degree of autonomy that's based in trust. Whereas the bureaucrat is closely supervised.
Yeah.
Professions, they require a worldview. Bureaucrats, no worldview required. Professions maintain their ethos or self-policed. Bureaucrats, it's external imposition. It's external policing. Professionals are intrinsically motivated. Bureaucrats are extrinsically motivated. They're motivated by a promotion, or they're motivated by a retirement, or they're motivated by any number of different things.
Duty on our country, huh?
Well, yeah, professionals seek to improve their profession in a lifelong calling. Bureaucrats seek to improve their benefits. You starting to see the difference?
Yep.
So we can ask ourselves, just looking at that, is the military a profession? We talk about the profession of arms. Is it a profession? What is the level of trust that the American people place in us when we raise our right hand? Let's think about your commission. Know ye that reposing special trust and confidence in the patriotism, valor, and fidelity of Alex Brasco is thereby appointed to the rank of lieutenant colonel, right?
Yep.
Or PFC, or specialist, or seaman first class, or whatever the case may be, right? Know ye that reposing not just any kind of trust, but special trust, it says. So there's a lot of trust that the American people have in the military and in service members in general.
So, Father, I gotta bring up something at this point because it's my own personal thing, and I have had a lot of friends who were excellent soldiers, excellent officers, excellent non-commissioned officers, and we all went through this stupid thing, 2020 through 2023 or so. And there was, I would say, a significant loss of trust in our senior leaders who were following politicians and really not even using their common sense in a lot of things, but, saluting, saying, hey, we're doing what's the right thing to do, when in fact, they never even examined it from a right or wrong perspective. They just tried to justify it by honestly covering their own asses. And so
you're talking about COVID, that whole thing. That did some serious.
We don't say that term just in case we get kicked off. But yes, it's
Well, it's exactly right, trust, and it went from the top down. I think most of us trusted Dr. Fauci from the very beginning. Then later on, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
We trusted the vaccine at the beginning. At least I did. Later on, not so much.
Yeah.
As things continue to develop, that trust wavers. Now, here's the piece about trust in the profession. Let's go back to the metaphor of doctors. Doctors are easy to pinpoint as a profession there. The amount of trust that we have in doctors is insane. Okay? And I'll just give you this scenario. You tell me how insane it is. We walk into a doctor's office, never asked to see his license or his identification, and some joker we've never met before walks in. He's got a white coat on. It says Dr. Alex Brasco right here, what have you. And he shakes your hand, introduces himself to you, and you introduce yourself. After you got to know him for about 30 seconds, he says, okay, I need you to drop your drawers, bend over, I'm going to stick my finger up your butt. And we say, okay. That's an amazing amount of trust, is it not?
You say it very, very, very scared, very, very cautious.
It's like, hey, dude, you're not going to buy me dinner or take me to a movie or anything? I mean, come on, and I'm going to pay you to do this?
Right.
And for women, it's even worse. We won't even get into the female exams that go on, but you walk in, you don't know this person, but you're getting really personal really quick, right?
Yep.
It's a lot of trust. Now, what happens, another scenario, hey, you've got this tumor, so what we're going to do is I'm going to put you to sleep. I'm going to take these here knives, and I'm going to cut your guts open while you're sleeping. And we say, well, okay. It's a lot of trust, brother.
Sure. Yes, it is.
So what happens when we don't trust doctors anymore? What happens?
Oh, well, shoot. A lot of potentially bad things.
Society needs this profession to thrive and to exist. and it's based in the trust. Now, what's the trust based in? It's based in two different things. It's your expertise. Does this guy know how to do an appendectomy? Well, yeah, I've done 800 of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Never lost a single patient. Okay. Number two, is him and his buddies gonna gang rape me while I'm asleep on the operating table, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there is the piece of professional expertise and the piece of honor, right? And the trust is based in those two things. So ask yourself, young service member, old retiree, police officer, fireman, teacher, whatever you happen to be, do people trust you? Do they trust that you know what you're doing? And do they trust that you're not going to lie, cheat, or steal while doing it?
Father, you got to give me a war story here. You mentioned being in a mess hall one time and seeing an NCO taking care of some guys that were outside the wire and did something stupid. Can you bring
this is great.
Can you bring that war story up?
Yeah, this is great. So I'm in Ghazni, Afghanistan, 2508 chaplain. That's a infantry battalion, the 82nd. It was 4th Brigade Combat Team back then. I think they restructured the 82nd. So 2508 is still there. But either way, summer 2007. I walk out my chapel. It's around noon. I'm on my way to the DFAC, to the dining facility, right? I'm going to go grab some chow. And I look over, and there's an NCO. Looks like he's got a squad of Joes, and they're in full kit, and they're rolling around in the rocks getting smoked. I mean, they're getting the dog shit smoked out of them, which is a common thing in the 82nd. So I didn't think too much of it, but they were in full kit. I mean, they had body armor on, and I remember seeing this one kid with the 240 and the bandoliers. They were wrapped around his neck because he's rolling around in the rocks. I'm like, wow, that sucks. So I just happened to walk over on my way and asked the sergeant, hey, man, what's going on? He says, Joe's getting stupid outside the wire, sir. I was like, okay, all right, yeah, that makes sense. Well, don't need them stupid outside the wire. Okay, take care of business, NCO. So I go to the DFAC, I eat my chow, and then I drink some coffee, and then I run my mouth for about an hour, as I do for a living. Hour and change goes by. Come back, they're still there. They're still getting smoked up. What's a hell of a lot of smoking going on? Not only that, it's the summer. It's in Ghazni, Afghanistan. I don't know, it's 110 degrees outside, something like that, and they're rolling around the rocks. So I'm like, hey, Sergeant, come here for a minute. So he walks over, he's slightly annoyed. What's up, sir? I said, I just want you to take a look at them. So he looks over there, and I said, now tell me one thing they all got in common. And he says, they're paratroopers. I said, well, that's one thing. That's not what I'm talking about. They all got guns, bro. They all got guns with live ammo in those guns.
Yep.
Next firefight happens outside the wire. You take one in the back of the head. It won't be the first time it ever happened in the history of the Army. What? Sergeant straightened up, yells over at him. I was like, take a look at that kid right there. He grew up in the trailer park. His daddy's in prison. His mom is a crack whore. And he's got a freaking 240 with live ammo in it. He's got about 6 grenades strapped to him. Got a 9mm hanging off his hip. You see what I mean?
Yeah. Did he get the message? Did he get it?
He got the message. He said, hey, that's enough. Get up. Don't do that shit anymore, right? So.
Yep.
Trust, huh? Trust. So it's a huge piece of this profession. So the main piece of that trust comes from, well, like I said, 1, your expertise. Number 2, your honor, your morality, your code. And that's where the ethic comes in. You're an Orthodox Christian serving in this capacity. It's not just military. How about firefighters? Do we need to trust them? How about cops? Do we need to trust them? I sure as hell hope I can trust them, right? So,
Father, since we're talking about leadership, we're talking about trust, you're giving those examples. I think it's coming up here in your presentation anyway. Can you talk about something that a lot of us have, unfortunately, a lot of experience with, and that is dealing with toxic leadership, which the Army, interesting side note, doesn't like to talk about toxic leadership anymore, likes to refer to it as counterproductive leadership. And
they don't like saying toxic anymore, do they? They
no.
turned that into counterproductive. Call it now, right?
Counterproductive leadership. Yep. And the reason they say is because, well, if you're a toxic leader, you're consistently toxic and it's a part of who you are. But if you're just counterproductive, you just may be having a bad day. You may be in a high stress environment, whatever it is.
Well, the term is a lot less pejorative than toxic. I was not involved in the conversation that turned it from toxic into unproductive. But I can tell you that the term toxic leadership first appeared in an Army War College paper in 2003, and the paper went viral. So now that's right about the time I was in the 82nd. I'd been in the military 10 years before that, and there was no such thing as toxic leadership. Dude's just an asshole, right? But you can recognize it. This guy walks into the room, then nobody's laughing at jokes anymore, and all of a sudden the mood turns sour and everybody gets quiet. He just brings a presence with him, like, oh shit, here he comes again.
Not serious, but sour. You said sour.
Very
That's a
sour. Yeah. It turns sour. Morale goes down. I mean, here we go doing some stupid stuff. Who knows what he's going to do this time, right? So this Army War College paper recognized that 1 out of 5 leaders, that's 20% of Army leadership, were considered toxic by their subordinates. That's from an Army Times article in October of 2011. It's characterized by intrusive micromanagement and lack of trust regarding subordinates, lack of respect for subordinates, lack of professional interpersonal behavior. The list goes on and on. Zero defects mentality, right? Risk averse, task giving with no meaningful purpose, because I said so, right? No task and purpose, just a task. Little or no attempt to develop subordinates. Company grade officers, NCOs have no authority to make decisions on their own. Lack of trust. When you have a toxic commander, it spreads throughout the entire organization. And everyone's seen this. Toxic leadership often produces efficient results in the short term, but disastrous results in the long term. Among the 20% of those people considered toxic, 80% will be promoted to E8, E9, 06 and above.
I have a perfect example. I was a second lieutenant in Korea, 2ID, and first 506 Infantry. Battalion commander was a then Lieutenant Colonel Mark Milley. Won't say the name just to give him a break, but RS2 was an absolute toxic leader. He came in, and I guess he was the son of a high-ranking officer, and he wanted to prove himself. And without even getting to know our shop, our NCO, myself as the assistant S2, our junior enlisted, he just came right out and said, hey, I don't care what you all do. I don't want to know what you do. I don't care what you do. I'm going to do everything that this shop needs to do to be successful. And it just blew us all away. The NCO, the junior enlisted, they feared him. I was pissed off at him, and I actually tried to talk some reason into him. I said, hey, sir, I said, we got people here who are trained to do their job. They want to do their job. They can do it well. If you just give them an opportunity, we'll prove to you that we can do our jobs and do it well. I had done very well under the previous S2, and he loved me, and he said great things about me. Got great, glowing evals and stuff like that. But his answer was like, "Oh, are you whining? Are you whining, Lieutenant? Are you being a bitchy whiner? And just dressed me down." And I just walked away steaming. I was ready to punch the guy in the face. Lo and behold, I walk into a gym many years later, and there he is in '06 in his uniform.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So these guys get good results.
Yep.
But they leave a trail of dead bodies behind them, broken formations.
Yep.
We've had, all right, I got to tell this story.
Okay, good war story.
Man, I don't know if I should mention the guy's name or not. He ended up retiring as a 2-star general. But,
oh, wow. You made it to 2-star.
Yeah, 2-star. So if I talk about it enough, people will figure out who it is. You just do a slight little internet search, you'll figure it out. But battalion commander back at 2508 in the 82nd. And I'm thinking about not telling the story, but I'm retired now, right? Send it.
Well, just don't say the name, Father, so no one can come against you for, whatever.
All right, sure. So this cat, we had a number of issues with him, and he had his own special name. He had 2 personalities, kind of like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And I won't tell you the names we had for him because it'll reveal who it was. But so I've got a typical Joe comes to see me. I had this same story about 9 different times. A kid grows up in the trailer park in Little Rock, Arkansas, and sees the Twin Towers goes down. I mean, so he joins the military, becomes a 11 Bravo, wants to be a paratrooper, goes to airborne school. Him and his best buddy that he meets there, they wind up in the reception battalion, the 82nd together, wind up in the same squad and the same fire team in 2508. Well, about 3 weeks before deployment, they go down to, the strip club, Bragg Boulevard. He falls madly head over heels in love with Trixie the stripper on Bragg Boulevard.
Trixie.
He never felt that way before in his life, right? So he marries Trixie 2 weeks before deployment, gives her general power of attorney and bank account access, everything. He's got about $10,000 saved up. He's going to buy him and Trixie a white picket fence house, right? They're going to grow old together and raise their grandbabies, right? Well, his good buddy gets blown up in some horrific fashion, and he calls home to get some love from Trixie, and Jody answers the phone. And Trixie wants a divorce. All the money's gone. So now he's lost his best friend. He's lost Trixie, the love of his life, who's run off with Jody. And the money's all gone. He's 19 years old. His young life is over. Shows up to my door at 2:00 in the morning with an NCO. I open up the door. NCO's there, and here's this kid. Looks like he's about 125 pounds. Uniform hanging on him like a coat hanger. He's filthy. He's got tear streaks running down his face. Chaplain, fix it. Right? Well, there's no instantaneous fix. I don't have a pill. But it will get better. But yeah, he's completely suicidal. So what do? We take the bolt out of his weapon. I throw it in a drawer. Because if he goes and tells this to the NCOs, well, they're just going to take his weapon away. Now he's going to be walking around like a pariah with no weapon. Hey, right. Private, where's your weapon? I'm on suicide watch, right? So we're not going to do that to him. Get him some Ambien. Maybe he can get some sleep. He needs to go to behavioral health. So he's shaking in front of me. Uncontrollable sobbing. He's a hot mess. So I go to the battalion commander later on. I'm like, hey, sir, here's what's going on with this kid. We need to get him up to Bagram to behavioral health. And the whole time, this battalion commander is looking at me. He's got this grin on his face, like, oh yeah, you listen to everything I'm saying. And he says, you know what I want you to tell him, Chaplain? You know, why don't you tell him this on behalf of me?
Whoa.
We're not going to let this mother effer hold us hostage with his own GD life. Right? So I'm like, wow. Tell him this. Oh, all right.
He's flipping off the screen for people listening, not viewing this. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He flips into the bird, says, tell this soldier this. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, that's going to brief really well in the 15-6 investigation after he offs himself. I mean, assuming I can, talk about that in the first place. But anyway, we just went around behind his back with the company commander and got to get up the bargain where he needed to go. So you want to talk about toxic leadership? Yeah, that's what it looks like. But then again, this was previous to this 2003 War College paper that came out, or maybe it was right about the same time. But the term toxic leadership hadn't spread around just yet. Now,
Right.
I'm sure you'd probably get relieved for doing something like that today, but Joker got away with it, made 2-star general. In any event, that's kind of what we see. And sure, that's going to erode trust. He didn't look at this kid like anything other than just weakness. Well, the kid's not weak. He's not a coward. He voluntarily joined the army, voluntarily became a paratrooper. He jumps out of airplanes for a living, risks his life just to get to the fight. So, I mean, General Gavin always said, show me a man that'll jump out of an airplane. I'll show you a man that'll die for his country. So, that wasn't the case at all. But the dude, he was an ass. And he did that numerous times. But moving on from toxic leadership, I think we're doing better than that now because the Army has the BCAP program. That's the Battalion and Brigade Commander Assessment Program. And I think they do some psychological evaluations and things of that nature to try to avoid that stuff in the future.
Yeah.
Perhaps. I mean, hopefully it's effective. I haven't seen too much of that stuff.
So in your instance, what you did, does that go back to that Robert Quinn quote, if you're not risking your career, you're not doing your job? Is that what that's about?
Well, I didn't do it to risk my career. I didn't want to risk my career.
Mm-hmm.
But quite frankly, there's bigger fish to fry than my career going on here. There's this kid's freaking life. I'm not going to have that sitting on my conscience.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, the conscience is a rough thing, and we're going to get into that when I jump out of the profession and into the ethic thing. But the whole piece of the ethics thing is it builds trust or it destroys trust based upon the ethic. But we're not doing the ethic thing to build trust or destroy trust. That's a side benefit. The building of the trust. We're doing this because it's who we are. So if I jump into the ethics thing and we do a little bit of a discourse on ethics.
Yep.
I
Let's do it.
I constantly want to go back to James Toner's book. A lot of the stuff I got is from Dr. Don Snyder, who is a mentor of mine. He was he's a West Point guy. Mm-hmm. Retired 06 from the Army. He became a fellow at the Center for the Army Profession and Ethic. And I mean, you can look up on the internet. Snyder, S-N-I-D-E-R.
I think I know.
You know him?
I think I've worked with him in the past on a few things that we were putting together.
You may have. I've heard him speak several times. I spoke at an ethics symposium when I was at CGSC at Fort Leavenworth. Had lunch with him. He became a mentor of mine as I was working through my master's degree in ethics at UVA. But
so, Father, I gotta ask you a question though, because we are focused on Orthodox Christians or inquiring Orthodox Christians or newly baptized Orthodox Christians. So, what are we supposed to do as Orthodox Christians when we run into, which we inevitably will, in the military, we run into the toxic leader?
Right.
What do we do?
I mean,
do
there's a number.
We humbly take his crap? Do we fight him? Do we stand up to him? What do we do to the toxic leader who all of us are going to have to deal with one day in the military?
Well, the first thing we have to do is make sure he's toxic and make sure we're not the toxic one. That's the first thing we got to do.
Good point.
So
how would you do that? How would you do that?
Well, it's an inward examination. It's a humility. It's having teachers, coaches, and mentors. It's having close friends.
Can you go to a chaplain? Can you go to a chaplain and ask a chaplain a question, say, hey, this is the situation. What do you think? And he can tell
Well,
you.
if it's a good chaplain, the chaplain could be toxic too.
Yeah, that's true.
The chaplain could have his nose up the commander trying to get a good OER. You just never know what you're going to get.
Okay.
But you can generally feel people out for a little bit and get there. But to avoid getting ahead, let me just back and give you a backdrop to ethics in the first place. The great tragedy of our republic, James Toner says, the sickness of the eagle is not just that they're the vicious and the criminal among us, but they're the negligent and the apathetic, whose hearts, minds, and souls never wrestle with the problems that ethics poses to us daily, personally, and professionally. Before you got to work, Alex, you probably already made 100 ethical decisions. Just getting to work. A lot of times I would do this class. I'd look at a soldier and say, "Hey, hero, stand up. I see that your boots are bloused properly. You've got a proper haircut, and your uniform looks like it's supposed to look. Why did you do that?" That was an ethical decision that he made to do that. They have any number of different reasons, but why do you brush your teeth? That's an ethical decision. Why did you any number of different things? Why are we doing this podcast? That's an ethical decision.
Right.
So these things are all ethical decisions. So we keep moving down. Why study ethics as a professional? Well, ethics education comprehends that the liberal arts, when they are more than prostituted prizes of political correctness, teach that men and women of integrity have existed in all creeds and colors and cultures, that character is truly universal and worthy of study and emulation. There's just too many things that pop up. I love this quote from Sir John Hackett in a speech at the U.S. Air Force Academy, spoke at a graduation. He says, the major service of the military institution to the community of men it serves may well lie neither within the political sphere nor the functional. It could easily lie within the moral. The military institution is a mirror of its parent society, reflecting strengths and weaknesses. It can also be a well from which to draw refreshment for a body politic in need of it. The highest service of the military to the state may well lie in the moral sphere. So he takes a bend from Clausewitz. Takes a break from Karl von Clausewitz, says that war and military is just politics by another means. He says the highest service of the military to the state may well lie in the moral sphere. So, I mean, those are things to think about and contemplate. But 3 pillars of military moral philosophy, according to Toner. This applies well in the orthodox context too. Number 1, recognition that evil exists and should be resisted by force if necessary. 2, acknowledgement of human duty, obligation, and responsibility. What do we owe to our fellow humans, Alex? And 3, appreciation of virtue and the attempt to inculcate virtue by word and deed. Now, when we're talking about virtue, we're actually getting into the Stoics.
Yes. Wait,
I want to
are we there yet? Tell me when we get to the Stoics, Father. Tell me when.
We're getting there. We're getting there. But I got to whet your appetite a little bit.
Okay.
So, the Liber Code, 24 April 1863. This is the basis for American military ethics. It says, men who take up arms against one another in public war do not cease on this account to be moral beings, responsible to one another and to God. So, Alex, when you were charging the hill at the Chosin Reservoir in Korea and you're bayoneting some guy's guts open, you are responsible to him and to God, even in the midst of killing an enemy. Now, that's a hard pill to swallow, is it not?
Yeah. Yeah, sure is.
Nevertheless, that is the calling as Christians. That's the calling as Orthodox Christians. That's the calling of our country in the Liber Code.
You do.
So
You
these
do
are
what
things to think
you
about.
do what you got to do. You do what you got to do without inflicting unnecessary pain or taking pleasure in that pain. You
Exactly.
do what you got to do.
Exactly. Two more quotes here that I think are profound. James Toner says, not all good people are always good soldiers, huh? But bad people are almost always bad soldiers.
That's a good point.
And another one of my favorite quotes from Edmund Burke, an armed, disciplined body is in its essence dangerous to liberty. Undisciplined, it is ruinous to society. So it goes back to last episode. Why should Christians serve in the military? Maybe Christians shouldn't serve in the military. Well, let's consider this. An armed, disciplined body is in its essence dangerous to liberty. Undisciplined, it is ruinous to society. What happens when there's a vacuum of virtue in the organization that has the most guns?
Yeah.
Ruinous to society. Ruinous to society. Why? Because they got all the guns, man. That's why. So there are two bottom lines to ethics as I see it. In order to do so, I got to tell you the story of Lieutenant Colonel George Patton at the St. Mihiel Offensive, 12 through 15 September 1918.
We're always up for a Patton story. We're always up for a Patton story, Father.
So this is before he was Lieutenant General Patton. He was just Lieutenant Colonel Patton, kind of like you and me. So anyways, he always had this idea of getting rid of the horse cavalry and changing it out for tanks because they're doing this tank thing in Europe. And he was always told by his superiors, hey, great idea, Georgie, shut up and color, right? Well, 9 months before the St. Mihiel offensive, we decided we're going to get into World War I, and these higher-ups decided we needed tanks. So, hey, George Patton, remember that idea of the tanks? We're going to make you a battalion commander. You're going to be the battalion commander of the first tank formation in the United States Army. You got 9 months to figure this out and cross the LD.
Right.
So he does. And he did pretty well, except those tracks got stuck in no man's land in the mud, and they got shelled the hell and back from the artillery. I think he took something like 70% casualties. So he's doing his after action review with his boss, the brigade commander, Colonel Douglas MacArthur, who asks him, George, why didn't you retreat? And the famous answer that George said to him was, I don't know, sir. I think it's because we were more afraid of our consciences than we were of the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 takeaways from that story when we talk about ethics. Number 1, have a well-informed conscience. Going back to your question, what do we do with the toxic leader? Well, number 1, let's make sure he's toxic and we're not. Have a well-informed conscience. And number 2, be afraid of that conscience and of nothing else. Because if you lose your job, that's one thing. If you lose your life, that's another thing. If you lose your conscience, then we have a thing, a clinical term for that. And it's moral failure. It's moral injury. Now, we can heal you up and we can tell you Jesus will forgive you, and that's true. But you forgiving yourself of your own moral injury is a very detrimental thing that could take you the rest of your life if you can ever forgive yourself for that. So follow your conscience, be a coward to it, but you have to make sure that conscience is well informed. So let's inform the conscience, shall we? So ethics. There are 3 general schools of ethics. There's virtue ethics, which is the oldest one. Middle Ages brought us deontology, and the 19th and 20th century, thanks to the 19th century German philosophers that we do not like, brought in consequentialism into ethics. So 3 schools, right? Virtue, deontology, consequentialism. So we'll start with virtue ethics. What is virtue ethics? Well, to understand virtue ethics, we have to go back to the foundations of Western civilization, and that being the ancient Greek philosophers, starting with Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Aristotle says we are what we continually do. Therefore, excellence, and the Greek word is arete, which means moral virtue.
Mm-hmm.
Excellence or moral virtue is not an act, but a habit. It's not something you do once, it's something that you continually do. So Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. After Aristotle, ethics or philosophy in Greece branched off to a number of different directions. One of them was the Cynics, and from the Cynics, we get the Stoics. At the same time, you also have the Epicureans and a number of others, but we'll focus on the Stoics. So Stoic philosophy, we're talking people like Cicero, Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Musonius Rufus. The list goes on and on and on. Basically had three branches to this philosophy, and all of Greek philosophy had three basic branches to it. It had physics. The Greek word is physis, which is physics, ethika, ethics, and logos, which is logic. These are three different branches, but they all inform each other. So physics wasn't just E equals MC squared. It was an understanding of the natural and historical universe. So it was history. It was science, biology, botany, astronomy, all of those things. An understanding and observation of the natural universe. That's physics. Ethics and logic come from physics because we see that the world is naturally ordered. Birds of a feather tend to flock together, things of that nature. If A equals B and B equals C, A equals C, that's logic. Physics and logic put together come up with ethics. They result in ethics. Okay, understanding the nature of the universe, taking the logic of the universe, how then shall we act? What do we do? Well, you live in accordance with the universe. You live in accordance with the logical universe. Let's see. Let's talk about something controversial today. If I I can show you a little plug over here. Electrical extension plug, right? It has a male end and a female end, right?
Yep.
So if I try to get electricity by putting the male on the male, I'm getting no flow. But if I put the male and the female together, I get flow. So this makes sense to the Stoics because they observe it in the natural universe. They observe male and female and they see reproduction taking place.
Right.
They see female to female and male to male as aberrations of the natural universe. So therefore, it's unnatural. Stay away from it. And if you want to get into that, you can read Musonius Rufus. He goes on and on about homosexuality.
Okay.
So just an understanding of the natural universe, looking at it, seeing how things are, and recognizing Seneca and Epictetus will talk about how human beings are different from the other animals because they're endowed by their creator with a rational soul and a rational mind that contemplates these things. I've got my Labrador Retriever, Bo, the next room over. He doesn't contemplate ethics.
No.
He acts instinctively. The greatest thing that he can ever do is eat, and that's about it. So before he got himself snipped, he used to chase off after female dogs in heat as well. But that's it. That's it. He'll do anything for food, and he'll do anything before he got snipped to have sex with his in-heat dog down the road. Make sense?
Yep.
But human beings contemplate this sort of a thing. We contemplate reality, and we look at nature logically through the divine logos, and it connects, and we behave in order to exist. Now, the question for virtue ethics is, what is the best life lived and how does one live that life? The answer, according to the Stoics, is by living in accordance with nature. But they capitalize nature. It's not just nature, the universe, it's God, it's the gods, it's all of this. You see?
Yep.
And when you are living in accordance with natural reality, you're living virtuously, or you're living by virtue. And this virtue is character driven and it's intrinsic to the person. It's lifetime and it's habitual, but it has to be learned. Nobody is born with virtue. I've got a grandson in the next room over. He's 2 years old, doesn't have a whole lot of virtue, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't understand what selflessness means. He doesn't understand his own self-absorption, if there's anything wrong with it. And his mom is teaching him the best he can. And hopefully by the time he's, 12 or 13, he gets that and understands virtue a little bit more. He's going to help the little old lady walk across the street.
Sure.
You see what I mean?
Yep.
And then it becomes habitual because, let's say, Alex, you're driving on the way to work and you're running late to a very important meeting. You've been there before, I assume.
A couple times.
So on your way, you see a little old lady walking across the street in heavy traffic and her grocery bag busts and she spills her groceries all over the middle of the street with a bunch of traffic going on. What are you going to do, Alex? You're late to work.
Do I have my New Jersey hat on, or do I have my Midwest Missouri hat on at this point?
Well, let's put on the most virtuous hat, probably the Midwest Missouri.
I'll put on my Midwest Missouri's hat. I'm going to pull over to the side and help the little old lady.
But you're going to be late to work, and you're going to get yelled at. But you're still going to do it. You probably can't help yourself, can you?
I'm 50. I don't care anymore.
Well, there you go. Well, you care more about the little old lady.
I do. I care more about the little old lady at 50 years old. Yes.
And so does the average 22-year-old private that has any sense.
Yep.
They're going to drive down. They're going to see what's going on. They're going to help her.
That's true.
Because they can't help themselves. 22-year-old private, he jumps on a hand grenade to save his buddy.
Yep.
Nobody ever told him to do that.
Mm-mm.
He's not required to do that, but he just does it automatically. You see, it's intrinsic.
Yeah.
And it's habitual. They can't help it. It becomes who you are. That is virtue ethics. That is what Stoic philosophy talks about.
So what is the orthodox equivalent to that then? Is there an orthodox?
That is orthodoxy. That is orthodoxy. Matter of fact, the whole notion of logos, of divine logos, or St. Justin Martyr called it logos spermatikos.
Mm-hmm.
It's Stoic philosophy. Saint Cyril of Alexandria was a Stoic philosopher who became Christian because the notion of logos becoming incarnate makes sense to the Stoics. So Christianity spread in among two major demographics in the first century. It spread among Roman soldiers and it spread among Stoic philosophers. The philosophy clubs of Alexandria, Egypt, people converted in mass because the notion of logos becoming flesh made sense after they thought about it. Now, originally, the Stoics believed that the soul leaving the body was salvation because you're getting away from this body, this sarx, full of its passions that wants to hold you back and make you chase off after all kinds of nonsense and chasing off after passions and things of that nature. So getting released from that body, the soul would be free. So why would logos descend and put on a human body, which Epictetus referred to as a rotting corpse with a paltry pint of blood? Why would logos put on a rotting corpse with a paltry pint of blood? So it was foolishness to the Greeks, Paul said. Remember, he says that Christianity, the cross, scandal to the Jews, foolishness to the Greeks. Foolishness to the Greeks because that was irrational. Why would he do that? Until they figured out logos desired intimacy with his creation because he loved his creation. And love seeks out intimacy. That's why he put on a rotting corpse with a paltry pint of blood to be one with his creation. So they realized that the Apostle John was right in his prologue when he says, O logos sarx ergeneto. The word became flesh. The logos, flesh became. Which I had a seminary professor said that the most profound sentence ever spoken in human language. But why would he do that? He did it out of love. So the Logos becoming incarnate for the Stoics results in Orthodox Christianity. Matter of fact, there's a Greek Catholicon chapel at Mount Athos, and on the outside of the narthex, there are icons painted of all of these Stoic philosophers.
Interesting.
That brought this stuff into Christianity, that is the foundation. So I would go so far as to call the Stoic philosophers the other Old Testament. They paved the philosophical way for Christian theology in the first millennium, really. So notion of Trinity, although it's brought up in Scripture, is really explored and unpacked by the Greeks. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Let's go back to our three schools of ethical thought in Greece, in the School of Athens. You have physis, logos, and ethika. Physis, obviously God the Father. Logos, God the Son. Ethika, God the Holy Spirit. So this stuff just flows. Epictetus writes that man's sole duty, man's supreme and sole duty is to sing praises to God, to his creator. So this is the pagan philosopher Epictetus talking. So that is virtue ethics. Now, let's talk about deontology. So the Stoics believed that you had to learn virtue ethics. You had to be educated, so that virtue was really only for the educated classes. Enter the Middle Ages, and the Roman Catholic Church says, no, it's for everyone. And because these people are uneducated, we will just make a big, long list of rules for them to follow. So deontology, as described by Immanuel Kant, the root word of deontology is deon, which is Greek for duty. That's where we get deontology, so the study of your duty. So Immanuel Kant is foundational to this, and he writes in his book, The Foundations for the Metaphysics of Morality, he writes about this thing called the categorical imperative. So the imperative is the prescription. It's the rule that must be followed in every different category. There is the rule that is followed. When you follow the rule, you are being ethical. So ethics is essentially following a big, long set of rules. In Stoic philosophy, and the understanding of living in accordance with nature becomes natural law in the Middle Ages. So you follow natural law. Big, long. If you look at Thomas Aquinas's Summa, it's a big, long list of Aristotelian syllogisms. If this, then that, then that. Basically, if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. That's an Aristotelian syllogism. So Summa, the whole, ever how many thousand pages, is a big, long list of what is the question. Okay. Aquinas gets the question, then he puts it to the Aristotelian syllogism. If this, then that, and the conclusion is that. Categorical imperatives. So there's your deontology. Now, deontology has some issues to it. So deontology takes things to the lowest common denominator. Deontology is, this is the rule for everyone. And there's always exceptions to the rule. where virtue, and it's extrinsically given to us, where virtue is intrinsic to us.
Mm-hmm.
We follow this because it's inside us and we have to, and it's natural. So we do the right thing, okay? Following the rule isn't necessarily doing the right thing. It's just following the rule. And there's a whole bunch of cases where the rule really doesn't apply to this situation. The rule makes no sense. If we look at the rules of evidence, the federal rules of evidence, there is exception after exception after exception after exception. Because in any given situation, the rule doesn't make sense anymore.
Right.
Same thing with Army regulation. Some of it doesn't make sense in a situation. If you look at Operation Red Wings and the situation with Michael Murphy and the SEALs that got stuck there in their Overwatch position, they got compromised. From the movie Lone Survivor, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they get stuck. They get compromised. And now they've got 3 people that they've taken captive. Well, if we release them, they're going to run and tell everybody where we are. We're all going to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
If we can't kill them because they're non-combatives.
Right.
Okay, those are the rules that military law and regulation has handed down to them. Well, it didn't really hand it down for that particular scenario, did it? I mean, the writers of these rules weren't thinking about the situation that was going to happen in Afghanistan in 2003 or 2004, whenever that went down.
Right.
So now they're in a pickle. What do we do now? So your classical ethical dilemma. Well, what you end up doing is following virtue, which is essentially what Michael Murphy did. But stuck with deontology, because deontology puts ethical action down to the lowest common denominator. This is what must be done. It's only going to get you so far. Virtue is going to get you to the heights. And I'll give you for instance here. Your military medals and awards, right? They're all for going above and beyond the call of duty, right?
Yeah.
All except one. There's one personal award out there that does not require that. And I'm putting you on the spot here. Remember what it is. And officers don't even get it. That should be a hint.
Talking a good conduct medal?
Bingo. Good conduct medal. If you go through an entire term of enlistment with no UCMJ, you get the good conduct medal. You followed all the rules, or at least you didn't get caught breaking the rules. But nobody hangs good conduct medal up in their office.
Right.
Nobody cares about that stupid thing. No, because virtue goes above and beyond the call of duty. That's where we want to be. We don't just want to follow the bare minimum standard. Back before the ACFT, you ran your APFT, right? When you were a West Point cadet, what'd you want to get? The passing is a 180. Were you aiming for 180 on that thing?
No, you wanted the badge.
You wanted 300. Why did we want 300? Well, all you got to do is just a 180.
Mm-hmm.
So deontology says get a 180. Virtue says get a 300 or beyond. We had the extended scale back then. Remember? You're looking for a 340, 350, 360. Remember?
That's right. That's right. Back in the day.
That's the difference. So virtue ethics preaches to the military mind. And when we go further, and it preaches to the Orthodox Christian, because we're supposed to reach Martia. Martia means being all that you can be, not just merely pooping out at deontology. Protestant Christianity is full of deontology. I want to go to heaven when I die, right? Well, what do I got to do? Well, say this here prayer. Is that it? Yep. You said the sinner's prayer. You're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's deontology.
Yep.
What does virtue ethics say? Virtue ethics says go and die. Give everything that you have. I should tell this little story, this little anecdote, and then I'll just open it up for questions from you. So let's say that, you're a platoon sergeant, okay? Or maybe you're the PL, right? And I'm your company commander. We're surrounded in the chosen reservoir. And we're all going to die unless somebody does something. So I'm like, hey, Lieutenant Brasco, I need you to take your platoon, charge to the top of that hill, and light off everything you got. And while you're doing that, all of these North Korean communists are going to charge that hill and cut your guts open with bayonets. And while they're busy doing that, we're going to haul ass out of here when no one's looking. So that's what you're going to do, Lieutenant Brasco. And you say, why should I do that? And I give you two different answers. You tell me which one you like the first.
Okay.
Tell me which one you like the best, okay? First answer is deontology, all right? Here's a deontological answer. Well, because, Lieutenant Brasco, Title 10 United States Code gives me authority over you as your senior officer. The UCMJ says you have to follow my orders. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
How you like that answer?
Yeah, not if I'm going to die. Doesn't help so much.
All right, how you like this answer here? Then spake brave Horatius, the captain of the gate. Death comes to every man, no matter soon or late. And what better way for man to die than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers and the altars of his gods? Which one you like better?
Go tell the Spartans. I like the second one better.
Bingo. Bingo. Go tell the Spartans. With you, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he who sheds his blood with me today shall be my brother.
That's right. That's right.
Speaks to your virtue. That speaks to your moral heart. That speaks to the God that lives inside of you. Right? Title 10 United States Code. I used to, hey, everybody raise your hand out there in the audience. On your tombstone, in the Veterans Cemetery, do you want it to say died for Title 10 United States Code?
Mm.
Or do you want it to say died for his brothers?
Yep.
Which one?
Yep.
So,
Well, it comes down to
deontology, brother.
It comes down to love too, doesn't it, Father? I mean, it comes
love
down
is
to love.
the chief of those virtues, yes. And
Yeah.
all of those virtues come out of love. St. Augustine, or Blessed Augustine, I'm going to have some folks back there get mad at me for calling him saint. Whatever, Blessed Augustine. He says, love and do what you will. There's no sin in love.
Mm.
There's not. So when we look at these things, I mean, you can get into various dilemmas, right? Various dilemmas. So when we talk about trust and we talk about oaths of office, those are all virtue-based things. Taking the oath of office is a virtue thing. The Constitution is a deontological thing. Constitution is law. Your oath is virtue. And at the end of the day, the bottom line ethical issue that you have to deal with in the military is your oath of office. It's nothing else. It is your oath. And we all took it. So what happens when, and we're going to talk about loyal disobedience here, what happens when deontology and virtue collide? Because this happens quite a bit. You're getting an immoral order.
Yep.
Right? So let's just look at the heroes of our past. So I'm going to bring up MacArthur, and I hope someone out there wants to shit on MacArthur for me. I hope someone does that. You certainly won't do it. You're a West Point grad, but you know what they say? Oh, he was a charlatan. He was this, that, and the other. Okay. So, but let's just talk about what did Dougie MacArthur do? 1949, Korean War, right? He pushes the communist army across the Yalu River and into China. He clears the Korean peninsula of communism. He does his job. He says there's no substitute in war but outright total victory.
Mm-hmm.
But the political question started arising.
Mm-hmm.
Those Chinese are massing on the Yalu River, and President Truman was getting a lot of pressure to make this better. So he tells Douglas MacArthur, I need you to withdraw the Allied forces back to the 38th parallel. Well, between the 38th parallel and the Yalu River, there was tens of thousands of American soldiers that bled the ground red.
Mm-hmm.
So MacArthur could not morally and with a good conscience just shit all over those people's lives by withdrawing back to the 38th parallel.
Right.
Or is it the 48th parallel? Which one was it?
38.
38. Yeah. I don't know why I had 48. I'm getting old. But so he was given a direct order, withdraw, and he said, no, sir. No, sir. And he says this. Now, here's the issue. MacArthur says this later on in a speech. He says, I find in existence a new and heretofore unknown and dangerous concept that the members of our armed forces owe primary allegiance or loyalty to those who temporarily exercise the authority of the executive branch of the government, rather than to the country and its constitution, which they swore to defend. No proposition can be more dangerous. But here's the problem. So that's a statement of virtue, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the Constitution, which you swore your virtue to, says in Article 2, Section 2, the president shall be the commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into the actual service of the United States. So president's in charge. Do what he says. But the president's telling me to do something which I consider either illegal, immoral, or unethical.
Right.
So what does Douglas MacArthur do? Well, he decided to go with virtue, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he got fired for it. He got fired for his country. So all those naysayers about Douglas MacArthur, they can talk whatever trash they want to talk. But there's a reason. And there's plenty of people in the Army that don't like to talk about Douglas MacArthur. He's a charlatan. He's a traitor, disobeyed, whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one out there, Robert E. Lee, another West Point grad. They don't like him either.
Yeah.
Men of virtue. But one thing we can say about Douglas MacArthur, there is an award that goes to company grade officers who excel in leadership more than any of their peers. What do we call that award?
The MacArthur Award.
The MacArthur Award, the MacArthur Leadership Award, named for the guy who flipped his finger at the President of the United States in those orders. What do you think about that?
Oh, don't ask me what I think about Truman. I've got plenty of opinion about Truman. So, yes, Father. So what do you refer to that as again? What was the term that you used for the audience?
Okay, that is virtue ethics versus deontology. Now, deontology...
No, but specifically disobeying an order based upon...
loyal disobedience. Loyal disobedience. So MacArthur disobeyed the orders of the President of the United States, not because he was rebellious and wanted to take over the country, but because he was loyal to the institution of the United States of America and to the people. He says it here in his quote, allegiance and loyalty to the country and its constitution, which they swore to defend. Now, I don't know if you remember your specific oath of office, but the oaths of office for officers and enlisted are different. Officers say that they will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office upon which they're about to enter. Enlisted raise their right hand and say they will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the officers appointed over them. But I tell the officers, y'all didn't obey to swore jack or to obey jack or squat.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't swear to obey anything. And the country expects you to well and faithfully discharge the duties. Now, why? I've done a lot of research into why we have two different oaths of office and I never really got a book answer on anything.
Mm-hmm.
All we can do is theorize. What happens if the president or the Secretary of Defense, what happens if they become a domestic enemy of the United States Constitution?
Gosh.
What's the military supposed to do then?
Gosh, a lot of people talking about that topic lately, Father.
Oh, it's getting talked about for the past 10 years,
Yes, it
depending on
has.
which side of the fence you find yourself on.
Yes, it
But
has.
what do you do? Well, what do? You follow your conscience. So what do we do? And how do you do that? That was your question. How do you disobey orders when they are given to you? Well, there's two different ways to do it. One I'd recommend a little bit more than the other, and we can look at MacArthur and the St. George and St. Demetrius response. They did it with aggression. They said, "No, sir. Hell no, I ain't going to do it." Right?
Yep.
MacArthur got fired, and St. George and St. Demetrius got martyred.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm here to tell you that's not the only way to do business. It might be the way that you're called to do business at that time. However, let me suggest another kind of way. And after you've been in the military for a while, you start figuring out how to do this sort of a thing.
Right.
We'll call it being passive aggressive, whatever you want. So let's say, okay, let's just go to the worst case scenario. Lieutenant Brasco, we're here at Auschwitz. We got too many damn Jews. We need you to drop Xylon B tablets in their barracks and kill them. So, one thing you can do is say, "No, sir, I ain't going to do it."
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, hell yeah. Charge on in, Lieutenant Brasco. Do whatever your career can handle is what we used to say, right? Do whatever your rank can handle. So, you're going to be done. Bye. We'll just throw you in there. We'll shoot you or execute you, whatever. Okay. So, yeah, you're kind of one and done there, right? Pathologically altruistic, maybe. Makes a good story to tell, but that's about it for Lieutenant Brasco. The effects of Lieutenant Brasco's career will no longer be felt anywhere.
By the way, you will be replaced with someone who will do it.
Yes, of course. Yeah, you'll be replaced with someone who follow orders, right?
Yep.
Or you can say, "Roger that, sir. Those Jews need to go. We'll get those Xylon B tablets in there forthrightly. It's going to happen."
Somehow the boxes that were holding them in the trains all disappeared.
Exactly.
Don't know what
you do is, I tell it like this: "Yes, sir. We'll get right on that."
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So
Hey.
it's I always refer to that as being clever as a serpent, but innocent as a dove.
Wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove. I've always been good at the harmless as a dove part. Wise as the serpent is where I've usually struggled before, but you picked that up over time.
Yes, you do.
And then when you're, hey, what happened a week later? What happened to the Jews in the barracks? Well, sir, the Xylon B tablets we had were expired, so we had to order some more from DPMO. And they're on the way. As soon as they get here, we're going to execute.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Maybe you can put that off for days, weeks, months, right? And then maybe the whole order just goes away because now you got a new commander.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
In the meantime, how many people's lives did you save? Just by sneaking around and being wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove.
That's right.
So I used to have a thing. I guess I started getting a little bit more rebellious when I became a 04 major, huh? We'd be told to do something stupid. The good idea fairy, right? You ever heard of the good idea fairy?
Oh, yeah. Met him many, many times.
Yeah, good idea fairy shows up and, we're going to do this thing and we need you to execute it. Oh, yeah. Roger, sir, I'll get right on that. Right? So you just play the game a little bit. You make it look like you're actually doing the thing that you're doing, but you're really not doing anything. And pretty soon it goes away. You just outlast it. Now, when it came to that, towards the end of my career, if I was told to do something I just didn't want to do, I would figure out. And in order for me to do that thing, that commander has to want me to do it worse than I don't want to do it. And I'm going to figure that out. How many counseling statements are you willing to write on me, Alex? You're going to take an hour out of your day to do one. You're going to have to sit down, pull out the 4156, and you're going to have to type the whole thing up. Then you're going to have to bring me in, have the conversation. And then, are you willing to do that?
Mm-hmm.
You got to want me to do it awful bad to sit down and do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So let's just see. Let's just see, sir. How bad do you want me to do this dumbass thing that you want me to do?
Roger.
Well,
Yep. Well, Father, we are at an hour and a half.
okay.
And I think we covered a whole lot of really good stuff today. I've been tracking what we've been covering today, and we'll make sure that for the folks watching these podcasts and listening, that they know all the different topics, because we don't repeat, but we kind of reference back to things we spoke about previously. But then we always have a whole host of new topics that we're discussing.
Yes, Stoic philosophy is not going away in this podcast. You're going to hear about it over and over again.
And that's fine, because you've given some great advice to me in the past that was related to Stoicism and the Stoics. So I guess the thing I know we're going to talk about in a future session here is death, facing death, how to prepare for death, how to even prepare for, you're talking about virtue, standing up for what's morally right. What happens when your punishment is much more significant than just loss of leave or, painting rocks? What happens when it gets really serious? How do you endure that? How do you make that choice? Because the easier answer is just to do what you're told, not even ask the questions and just shut up.
Sure,
and
any dumbass can do exactly what they're told to do.
Exactly. So we'll talk about that, I hope, in maybe the next session. And then honestly, some of the things that we will be asked to do in the military is putting our lives at risk. And it's a precious thing, and putting the lives of those that we lead at risk. And sometimes we don't understand the whole big picture, but sometimes we do. And so, we get that ethical dilemma there. So I hope we talk about that in the next show. I hope we talk about death, specifically how you prepare for death. How would you prepare for death? How would you prepare for deployment? Let's say we're going to war against the godless Chinese hordes, right? From the People's Republic of China. We're going to Taiwan. What would you do if they said, Father, put your uniform back on, put your stole back on, get out there, here we go island hopping? How would you prepare for that as a priest, as an Orthodox Christian, as a soldier? I really hope that that's something we discuss here in the near future.
Yeah, so let's maybe do that next episode. We'll see how that works out. But yeah, there's a lot to
unpack
that's a hell of
there.
a topic right there, brother.
And
I'll look forward to discussing that.
Okay. So anything else you want to end with today, Father? Anything to tell our audience?
I think that's it. For those of you listening, certainly appreciate it. I think we're going to be on YouTube pretty soon, so we'll be throwing out if you like it, then hit the like button and subscribe and all that.
Right. Yeah.
We're not there just yet, but it's on the way.
Okay.
But to end, God bless you all wherever you are. Remember, wherever you are, you're not alone. This is War Priest signing off the net.
Till next time.
This is
War Priest.
signing off the net. God bless you. Out.
Ispandas dulce